Hello, good morning. It's 10 a.m. in most of Europe. We have another community meeting for AsyncAPI community. As usual, before discussing specific topics, it's the best moment for people in the call that if you'd like to ask something or you'd like to introduce yourself to the community, I think that's the best moment to do it. Would anyone like to say something? No? You sure?
Sorry, I always struggle to find a mute button. It's been a while since I introduced myself and I see some new faces. So I'm Nic Townsend. I work at IBM. I'm a software developer on some of our streaming products. Previously used to work on a product called Event Streams, which was our on-prem and on-cloud Kafka offering as managed and self-service pieces. And I now work for IBM Event Endpoint Management, which is a extension of an existing API management product we currently have in the market. And this new capability is designed to allow you to socialize asynchronous APIs, which is how obviously I then got involved with the community, because we chose to get involved with the AsyncAPI community as a way of using a community standard to document, to begin with, Kafka topics for consumption from for essentially other teams. And if anyone's paying attention, I had my speech or session expected for the AsyncAPI conference, where we will be, myself and my co-speaker Salma, discussing the experiences that we've had with AsyncAPI with regards to describing and documenting Kafka topics as an external data source.
Awesome. Welcome again. Let's jump into, Kuda, you want to say something just to make sure that, I mean, you don't have to, I just want to make sure that I'm not jumping in. Oh, Fran.
No, just happy to be here, man.
Awesome. Happy to have you.
Thank you.
And welcome, Franito.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Invisible.
Okay, so let me jump into the most important topic. Like every 2 weeks, I give you an update on how it's going on with the hackathon and the conference. So if it comes to the hackathon, it's the last week. I just checked we have so far 5 submissions. I know at least about 3 more that will come, but I bet that even more than just those 3 will be in for the review. Important. Maybe I'll just share a link to the submissions for you if you want to have a look. I'm gonna put it in the chat. We need people to help out with the review. We have already, let me just find a link to the discussion. So we have already, I counted 10 volunteers that would like to, jump into the review of the submissions. So if any of you on the call or people watching the recording, you'd like to help and you have time next week to do the review, please just put your name there in the discussion on community repo, and make sure you're in our Slack, because I will just create a private group in our Slack with people that will provide scores. So we have like a single place to exchange links and deadlines. That's how we did scoring for conference proposals, and it worked pretty well. So we're gonna do the same with the hackathon. So if you want still to volunteer, it's still time until the end of the week. So far, as I said, we have 10 people. We had 10 people for conference. It was okay, but it's open to anyone to do the reviews. So if you want to jump in, you're not involved as one of the participants, or you're not involved as I am or Maciek, like some people from the community talk to us also in DM asking for our opinion about the ideas they're working on. So because we share our opinions and we kind of can be biased by what we saw already. I'm pretty sure I would be biased, so I don't want to be the one that is providing scores. So that's if it comes to the hackathon. If it comes to the conference, last weekend was deadline for the submissions. Not last weekend, 2 weekends ago. Then last weekend was deadline for people providing scores and selecting talks. And Nic, I think you confirmed, right? You got an email already from Linux Foundation?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so we, as far as I know, people from Linux Foundation helping us with the schedule. They sent out emails already to people that were, that they had their talks selected. I already scratched a draft of the schedule for the conference. What more can I share? We have 16 talks for day 2 and day 3. So 8 talks per day. And day 1, which was a contributor summit, half of the day is about presentations from Google Summer of Code participants that completed Google Summer of Code during holidays. They will have 15 minutes long talks to introduce the things that they managed to complete, like CUDA that is on the call. Then we will have a presentation from the hackathon winner, short presentation on what was completed at what won. And then break in the middle of the day and contributor related presentations from maintainers of AsyncAPI initiative. So that's day 1, and then day 2, day 3 is like 8 talks per day. And the schedule will be similar to the conference we had last year. So it starts around lunchtime. At least for me, always lunchtime is midday, 12 o'clock. And then we have a 1-hour break after 4 talks, and then we jump into the time zone where we can have Americas participating as well. So half of the day is always for people that, like, we can see that, like, if it comes to the east of the world, the most active people in the community don't go further than India and Pakistan. So we enable people from India, Pakistan, and then Africa and Europe to participate in the first part of the day. And then the schedule is more friendly for time zone for Americas. It was the most fair last year. Nobody complained. So I think that this year it should be okay as well. Pretty fair for the whole community. Did I miss anything? Something you have in your mind, like questions regarding the conference and hackathon? The schedule will be released this week. There's still a lot of stuff to organize, like put it in some schedule application and have it nicely displayed on the website. And marketing, we're going to start next week. So if you want to be involved, like, for example, I mean, I don't like clicking. So if somebody wants to take over, like, clicking in LinkedIn UI to understand how to do some marketing in LinkedIn, then feel free to jump in and support me here. I'm also not good in writing good texts. So if you want to even suggest the messages that we should share on LinkedIn and Twitter in a paid promotion, then feel free to jump in. Any questions?
Yeah, in terms of, I'm afraid I didn't participate last year. Is there a sort of a replay, or will the videos be permanently hosted after the event?
Yeah, so basically the whole event last year was pre-recorded, and the same is for this year. Like, so you have deadline, don't remember, 8th, I think it's in the email, 8th of November, I think, to record the presentation. So basically the conference is we're streaming the recordings, but the participants, they have to be there. So we start a talk with inviting a presenter live to show that the presenter is with us. Then we play recording, and the presenter or presenters, they are available for people that ask questions in the comments, just to answer them. And yes, after the conference, the whole stream will be available on YouTube, like this few hours long stream for every day. But we also last year released individual videos, and the same is going to be done this year as well.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. You can also like release your own video if you want, like on your own, because the difference between the videos that, like, for example, you will provide the difference between your source video and our video will be that on our video we will show the platinum sponsors, because that was part of the deal, what they get for the money for the conference. Any other questions? Okay, so yeah, that's it. If it comes to the conference from my side, it looks pretty good so far. We had pretty, I'm sometime this day maybe or next days, I'm gonna post a message I received from one of the people that was selecting talks, like nice words for the AsyncAPI community, like what quality of the talks we got. So I think it's pretty nice. The agenda will be pretty cool. So yeah, any topics from your side, like, because like I had one topic more, but yeah, I forgot what was it. So do you have any questions? Hey, George.
Hello, thank you for inviting me and allowing me into your group.
Awesome. Would you like to introduce yourself? I think it's the first time you're on our meeting.
Yeah, it's the first time. I'm a keen API person. I've been in the space for quite a few years. I find myself now at MuleSoft as a platform sales engineer, but my interest here is to broaden my knowledge and to understand eventing, and I've got some queries, but I won't bore you with them today.
Awesome, welcome. And I think like Fran, you're still there, or you're still invisible and you can't speak?
I am.
Yeah, because I think you shared a link that MuleSoft released some support for AsyncAPI.
Yeah, last night. So there was I actually found it by coincidence.
So it's not new.
Released.
I thought it's a new stuff.
14th of October, we released it.
Yeah, exactly. 14. It's actually pretty new. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, so we can host your API, your async API, and design them. So it's our first phase of support. Our second phase will be to support the scaffolding from an async API. But the first phase is to help discovery and design of async API.
Okay, cool. So more and more companies support AsyncAPI, which is awesome. Very good.
Yeah, tooling makes a space. Without tooling, you're just a piece of text.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Any other topics from anyone?
I've got a real newbie one then. I really would love to ask. I'm itching to ask it, so please don't laugh. If I was looking at the events of an enterprise and I wanted to discover them, wouldn't I want to look at the messaging system? And I use quotes around messaging system, whether it be Kafka, Solace, etc., etc. That's hidden from me. I'd be looking at the inverted commas messaging system, and I'd want to see what events are supported by that messaging system, instead of looking at applications and which ones they're listening to or producing. Is that the wrong way to look at it? Because I'm finding with AsyncAPI, it's attached to an application. And therefore, if that application A is published to a JSON payload of format A, does that mean application B could publish to a different format? And therefore, you'd have to have different formats for create customer. So I thought it would be on the messaging, centered on the messaging. You go look at a messaging system and what events it supports. And it's nearly incidental what applications are listening or writing to it, because it's the messaging system that dictates the format and how to, enter in that event as create customer.
So let me answer maybe from my experience, and others, let's jump in with your opinion. So before working full-time on AsyncAPI, I was working at SAP. And we were I was involved in the works on exactly something similar. So we had to have a kind of discovery of events, because we wanted to have a central place, central messaging system where whatever customer can come in and see messages from different SAP applications that they can integrate with. And for them, the most important view was the event list. They didn't care much about first defining they want to see events from system like commerce or system like warehouse management or whatever. They first wanted to see the list of the events, but then they still needed to have the information, what application they are coming from, so they can identify, if they have similar names for the events, they had a way to identify what are messages, what application they're coming from. So I would say both is really needed. You need to, as a customer, they had to identify where the event is coming from, what application. But the main view was really to have a discovery of all the events from all the different systems.
Well, so then you kind of agree with me. I kind of do. Well, I'm a very challenging character, and so I don't mean to challenge, because I know I've just joined a minute ago. I don't get it then. If I'm at a greenfield site and I want to limit the amounts of events created, I don't want event sprawl like API sprawl. I want a restricted list of events. I don't want other people, other endpoints, other SAP creating an event called customer new, and then Salesforce creating customer new too. And SAP and Salesforce are always going to dislike each other, and I don't care about either of them. What I care about is there being one event for create customer, because my enterprise gives a shit about create customer. It doesn't care or shouldn't care if it was in, Salesforce or SAP, because we're trying to create a composable, uniformed enterprise. So async at the moment, to me, is reinforcing the ability for applications to create as many events as they want, and the poor messaging center to support as many different variations. And I thought, just looking at this originally, is saying I would want the messaging to control what events are created and them to be the center. And of course, on the message, maybe, or a topic or whatever, a header to say where it came from. Of course, that's useful, very useful. But in the end, it's about controlling and discovering of what messages are supported. Am I totally off base for thinking this?
I mean, so from my perspective, like I'm not sure really about Salesforce, like what is Salesforce all about, except of probably something related to sales. But I would like ask you a question then, like me, would it like, is it normal that I would see like customer created event from two different systems that do the same? Because I guess that's what you mean. Like you have a subsystem. I think SAP had something sales related. So do you mean like two similar systems or the same systems, but from two different vendors with the same events? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I wouldn't see them like so. With
I
our
agree.
integration,
I agree. There would be hardly any would have the similar. I'm just saying the onus, I think, points on applications where the onus, the focus should have been on the queue. So the queue controls what events it's given, pukes out, given, whatever words you want to use, publish, subscribe, consume, produce. I'm not debating that. What I'm debating is which is this, where is the center of truth? Where is the source of truth? And I thought async was going to be the single source of truth. But when I look at async, I see that it's attached to applications, and therefore I'll have the all age adage of SAP doing it their way, Salesforce doing it their way, NetSuite doing it their way, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was an opportunity to allow the messaging system to control the enterprise's events so it doesn't get out of hand. And that's where you do a central single source of truth to discover what events exists in this enterprise. And is that supported, or, because at the moment I see it's got application on the top of the async, and they're going, I'm back to the old battle between Salesforce and NetSuite and SAP.
I mean, at the moment it's application centered, but there's the, Fran, can you find the link to the Popup discussion? So we have a discussion on the.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm going to add to that,
okay.
But I'm probably in the total minority. It's just, remember, I'm from a completely unbiased, I think, view. I'm not labeled to MuleSoft or Jitterbit or wherever I've worked. It's just, I had no idea about what async is. So I've jumped in full feet, and I'm just surprised that it's not queue-centric. And I want to stress, I don't care if it's Solace, Kafka, MQT, whatever it is. I'm centered on that would be the single source of truth, and the applications have to play to that instead of applications steering it. I was surprised, but I'll write that down, but nothing will change. But I'm glad I'm not going mad. People see my point.
I think nothing stops you, right, to do that, as far as I know. Maybe you can correct the others, but you can have your own AsyncAPI file having all the messages around your company or all the channels which translate to topics in Kafka, for example.
Yeah.
So you could use that for kind of like, in fact, in the link I pasted there, I think Frank described as catalog or something like this.
Yeah.
Like a catalog of events and all the infrastructure around your event-driven system, right? So collection, I think you changed the name or at some point, I guess. No.
So could you really call your queue what word should I use? Because people get so zealot over which type. Is it queuing? Is it PubSub? Is it whatever the async API, the asynchronous mechanism, let's call it. That could you call that an application? And then you could put all the events on that application. So then you could see, the Solace queue is an application and has all these events on it. And therefore you only allow the queue or the stream to be known as an application, and it has all the application, the events APIs on it. It's just, I don't want to be going around and trying to find, what SAP is and what other different applications, because it seems when you save it, an async API, in MuleSoft, we'll be having millions of different async API files, and a lot of them being very similar.
again, I think you can do it and nothing stops you. The way it's split now, I think it also makes sense because it could cover any use case. So some other companies may need the current model or the standard or default model, which is just describing the application instead of the whole thing, as you said, because basically you want to distribute that and you don't want to mix your models, your messages between applications, right? So let's say you have 3 applications that they are from several departments on your company. So you don't want to mix them with others, right? In other cases, like yours, it makes sense that you want to have everything centralized, but nothing stops you to do
Excellent.
that.
Well, I'm so glad I joined, and you've got another convert and he works at Mule, and that's all I wanted to get, and I feel very satisfied with those answers. I now get it. Yes, it's flexible, and it had to be flexible. In a utopia, you might want to make the queuing system the single source of truth, but it's not reality. You're always going to have SAP wanting the messages subscribed to them in a different way than maybe Salesforce, and a webhook differently because they can't do this and can't have this field. I get it. I agree. Wonderful. I'm very glad to have joined, and thank you for the patience on such a newbie question.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments? And so, George, you joined. So, like you said, like it's your first time here. We're hosting a conference in the mid of November. So you definitely would like to, I bet you'd like to join to listen to different point of views, because there will be definitely some, I think it's not a secret anymore because people got an email, a notification. So there will be people from Walmart and PayPal, for example, talking about their experience as an end user. So some good insights for you, I bet, but other members of the community as well.
Good question, which is kind of like linked to what we were just speaking about, really. So I shared the link the issue 618, which is this pub sub confusion. And I think it kind of goes on what you talked about, George, about I think my understanding is there are proposals for like organizational stuff. So I think in theory you could have your events. I think I've read this somewhere. You could have your events listed and some AsyncAPI files kind of pointing to these events like external refs. But my question, I guess, with this issue is, so it was raised on the 6th of September. What's the natural flow of these kind of issues? Because this is kind of a big discussion here of like 50, I think there's 50 comments. Yeah, 50 comments. So what happens there? And how does this get, I don't know, how does it get resolved, and how does it move on? Yeah, be interesting to know.
Ranito. I mean, you created the issue, so I bet the best update comes from you.
Sorry, to be honest.
You're muted again.
Sorry, I have a mess here, so I sometimes can't listen properly. So, David, would you mind summarizing?
No worries. I think the question just was that issue, the pub sub confusion with 50 comments. Is that what's the next stage to that issue? When does it get resolved or closed or evolved?
So yeah, that is something that I still have to decide, but I was thinking I'm either converting this into a discussion, separate discussions, because I was seeing that this issue was having like different, at least 2 different discussions in a single issue, that they're somehow related, but they don't have to be solved at the same time. So I have to take care of this. And I still have to also create a pull request with the changes that we already agreed, more or less, on this issue. It's not that we agreed, but we, let's say, we agreed on the first round. Then over the pull request, we'll see if people can actually see it in place and see it better, let's say, and then and agree there, and agree on the finally agree on the pull request. So that is, but that issue actually it is. I think it's at least two issues in one. So yeah, I still have to take care of this, and Jonas will take care of the other one, by the way, of the many meanings of an AsyncAPI file. Precisely what George was mentioning, that for some people it's an application, for some people prefer this to be representing the whole broker or the whole messaging system. So yeah, we still have to decide in version 3 what AsyncAPI file, what an AsyncAPI file is going to represent, or maybe we decide that it can represent all of them, depending on that, and you have to set some kind of type or something. And this is a library of events for the whole organization, or for your whole domain, only for your domain, in case you're doing domain driven design or something like that. So you have to separate domains, and you have an AsyncAPI file per domain. I don't know, something like that. Or if you want to continue sticking to application, you can stick to application. That is something that we have to still decide there. Actually, there are some comments on the issue. Let me just find it. There are already some comments on how to proceed. So.
Okay.
Because I do believe API sprawl is a very real problem, and event sprawl will be a very real problem. So I think an article on something, and maybe saying by default position at a greenfield site, if you're new to eventing, is try and not to have a domain specific events and have general. But as long as there's some good examples written by recognized leaders, then I think that's suffice. I like the idea that you've said, no, it must remain flexible. It can't be either or. It can be either or. It can't be just one, just central or application central.
Yeah. So the thing here is that for some people, messaging means a broker or messaging system, and for some people, messaging means client server WebSocket, like for instance, browser and a WebSocket server. So there is no broker or messaging system at all. So in this case, it doesn't make sense to have like a collection of available messages for your messaging system, because like I said, there's no messaging system. It's only just your application, your server application and your client application. So that these two kind of like broker-based architectures and client server point-to-point application, or client server, not point-to-point applications like WebSockets and browsers are two very different use cases that are always like, whenever we make a decision like, hey, let's adopt this way of doing things that is cool for brokers, it's not cool for client server. When we decide that it's cool, let's decide about something cool for WebSockets or client server, then it's not cool for brokers. So it's like, we need to remain flexible, of course, and but we also need to somehow figure out a way to reduce the ease of creating more problems, right? So some people create more problems with AsyncAPI. So yeah, like I said, like discussion is happening in these issues, and I think all opinions are welcome there. Like what should it look like? And the second one that the one that I shared about the many meanings of an AsyncAPI file is something that Jonas will be working on. When exactly is going to be starting this week, I think. So when it's going to be finished, ask him. I don't know. I would say it's going to take some time.
Mm-hmm.
We still need to give time to the community to give their voice, and then yeah, I think these two issues are the most let's say challenging ones for version 3. Once we have those two sorted out, the rest are like kind of easy to solve.
Okay, do we call it a day or any other questions, comments?
Just one more comment, yes. George, you mentioned event like spew across your domain and stuff. I guess outside of external systems and stuff, you can't really control too much, but there's some good, I think there's some interesting work. I'll share a link now. Sergio is working on this, but with the async API file and your broker, you can validate your messages. So if you had teams in your organization just doing what the hell they wanted to do with events, you can actually have your central broker validating events coming in and out using the async API file. So that pattern might be interesting to look at.
That would be, yeah. I like how Solus allows you to say, you know, most messages you can puke in anything you want, but they have like you have to fit a format for the topic. I like that. So it's kind of reinforcing, but it's also new, this area. So I think it's fantastic. But what I like to see with an async, anything new, is to have best practice boiled into this. And these two issues that we've been talking about, I consider myself not stupid. And so if I can make, and 20 years in IT, if I make this assumption wrong by just simply looking at it and coming in, I think the specification must educate. Part of it must be educational. And so, you know, it must surface this different use cases that it supports, i.e. broker or client server. But when I look at it now, I don't get that from the spec. And so I think that really is important, that it's built into it. So people that are supposedly brainy and experienced don't make this, you know, mistake as newbie mistake I've made straight away.
Yep. Okay, so before the end, just a kind reminder, tomorrow we have it's a time for contributor first meetings, live streams. It's going to be again at 8 a.m. UTC and 4 p.m. UTC. So feel invited to join. The meetings with details on how to join, they will be available under this link that I just pasted. I'll create them after the meeting. Feel invited to join if you want to start contributing to the project. And even though I planned to do those contributor first meetings just in October because of Hacktoberfest and the hackathon that we had, I think I'm gonna continue, and because many people liked it, and I think it's very much needed. So let's keep up discussion, like how we want to do it. Like, do we still want to have it that often, once a week, twice a day, or not? So yeah, nothing to discuss now, but just keep it in mind how we want to do it in the future. And thanks a lot to all of you for joining, and the new members as well. See you in 2 weeks, and don't forget, at least in Europe, this weekend we're changing time to, don't know the name of the time, but basically the hour goes 1 hour back, which means the schedule will change a bit, because we always schedule community meetings basing on UTC, and obviously UTC does not change no matter of the part of the year. So it's still 8 a.m. UTC, but for example, or 4 p.m. UTC, but for example, for like me from Poland, it's gonna change from 10 a.m. to 9 a.m. So just keep it in mind and don't lose the meeting. And enjoy the crazy time zone change.
Thanks, Lucas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.